Good morning and welcome to the Daily Light Devotion and welcome to today, that is the 11th of January's daily devotion, where we are going through the whole year. We will be reading the Bible and finishing the Bible. So that's why I'm going a little fast. Do give me feedback if it's too fast for you. I'll try to make some changes from next week. Let's see what changes I can make and make it more concise and crisp, so that when you go through that also you get a deep understanding of what it really literally means. Today we're going to look at Genesis chapter 27 and 28 and finish off Matthew chapter 9 verses 18 to 38. So Genesis 27:28 is deeply kind of a human story filled with deception, broken trust, fear, and consequences. And yet, despite all of these, we see the faithfulness of God. These chapters reveal the power of truth. God's redemptive plan is not stopped by human weakness, right? In Jacob's story, we see a clear picture of Jesus, a true heir to the blessing, the bridge between heaven and earth, and the one who meets us in our wandering. So, Genesis 27 talks about this, you know, uh, basically verses 1 to 30 talk about this stolen blessing and sovereign grace. So Jacob deceives Esau, right, and receives actually deceives Isaac and receives the blessing meant for Esau, right? And humanly speaking, the blessing comes through manipulation and deceit. Yet God had already declared the older shall serve the young one in Genesis 25, verses 23. So God's purpose stands even when people act wrongly. And how do we see this? Jacob received the blessing through deception. Jesus receives the blessing through obedience. And though he was a son, yet he learned obedience. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 8. What is the devotional truth here? God's grace is greater than human failure. And Jesus is the rightful son who inherits the blessing without sin. Verses 30 to 41. Uh, so Jacob flees from Esau. Shortcuts bring consequences, right? And God promises remain, but the path becomes painful. Jesus never took shortcuts. Not my will, but yours will be done. Luke chapter 22, verse 42. God's promise does not require sinful method. Jesus fulfills God's will perfectly. In Genesis 28, verses 1 to 5, is Isaac blesses Jacob again, this time knowingly. What was taken in deceit now is confirmed in truth. So Jesus receives the blessing openly from the Father. This is my beloved Son, Matthew 3, verse 17. Um, God confirms his promise in his time. Jesus is a publicly affirmed Son. Verses 10 to 15, Jesus sleeps in the wilderness. He dreams of the ladder reaching from earth to heaven. God stands above it and promises his presence. So God meets Jacob not in the temple, but in the lowest moment of his life, right? When he's running away from Esau. And Jesus explains this vision clearly. He says, "You will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." In John 1 of verse 51. Jesus is the ladder. He's the connection between heaven and earth, right? The truth is God provides a way to himself. Jesus is the only bridge between God and man. Uh, Chapters verses 16 to 17, Jacob is awakened and says, "Surely the Lord is in this place and I did not know it." So God's presence is often realized after brokenness, and through Jesus God dwells with us. The word became flesh and dwelt amongst us, John 1:14. God is near even when we feel he's far away. Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us, right? Jacob, in verses 18 to 22, Jacob builds an altar and makes a vow. So the encounter leads to worship. Though Jacob's faith is still immature, God continues to walk with him, and that's how faithful God is. Jesus invites us into a new covenant relationship. I am with you always, right? Matthew 28:20. God grows us step by step. Jesus walks with us patiently, right? So, what are some of the personal reflections here and applications? Am I trusting God or manipulating outcomes? Do I believe in God's grace is bigger than my past? And where do I need to encounter God afresh? Am I relying on Jesus or as my only way to the Father? So the daily response is trusting God's timing, repenting of self effort, receive grace, worship God's presence, and walk with Jesus daily. We move to the New Testament. We will look at Matthew chapter 9, verses 18 to 38. First, we look at 18 and 19, where Jesus is in a synagogue ruler kneels before Jesus and says, "My daughter just died, but come and lay your hands on her and she will live." So faith there is to believe beyond impossibility of human condition, right? Jesus is accessible to those who are desperate in faith and desperate in need. And whoever comes to me, I will never cast him out, he says in John 6:37. So faith brings impossibilities to Jesus, and Jesus is the resurrection and life. Verses 20 to 22, a woman suffering for 12 years touches the hem of Jesus' garment, and Jesus stops and says, "Daughter, take heart, your faith has made you well." Right? So faith reaches out even in weakness. Jesus calls her daughter. He restores the dignity along with healing, right? Her identity. Your faith has healed you. Matthew 9:22. Jesus honors faith. Jesus heals body, heart, and identity, right? Verses 23 to 26, Jesus raises the ruler's daughter. What others laughed at, Jesus reversed. That is not final in his presence. And we see Jesus holds authority over that. I am the resurrection and life, John 11:25. So what is the devotional truth here? Nothing is beyond Jesus' power. Jesus conquers death completely. Verses 27 to 31, two blind men cry out, "Son of David, have mercy." Jesus asked, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" They reply, "Yes, Lord." Faith confesses Jesus rightly, right, and his righteousness. He opens the blind eyes physically and spiritually, and their eyes are opened. Faith acknowledges Jesus' identity. Jesus gives sight in the blind to the blind. And verses 32-34, Jesus frees a man oppressed by demon. Some marvel, others accuse. Jesus' power demands a response, right? Jesus destroys the works of the devil in darkness. The Son of God appeared to destroy the works of the devil. So Jesus brings true freedom. Jesus liberates the oppressed. And verse 35, the compassion ministry of Jesus is revealed. Jesus goes through all towns and villages, teaching, preaching, and healing. Compassion moves Jesus outward, and he embodies the kingdom wherever he goes, because he is same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:18. Verses 36 and 38, Jesus sees the crowd, harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. He tells his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few." Right? So compassion produces mission. So Jesus is the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd, John 10:11. And God's heart longs for people to be reached. Jesus sends workers into harvest. So what are some of the applications? Approach Jesus with faith, right? Take his authority, receive his commission, see people as he sees them, pray for workers and be willingly to go. Matthew chapter 9 verses 18 to 38 shows a savior who's compassionate, who restores lives and transforms destinies, right? He heals the broken, he raises the hopeless, he opens the blind eyes, and he frees the oppressed, and then he turns to us and says, "Pray and go." So let's have the same compassion, receive the compassion from Jesus, and have the same compassion towards others. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.